as an individual, I avoid groups and social media places which are known to have fake news, and restrict myself to reliable sources.
If somehow everybody can come together to promote independent news media outlets, news media, smaller agencies and organizations which do not have political affiliation or political funding.
I don't think it is possible to curb fake news by social media by means of the present laws in the country, and also by the atmosphere of so-called uncharted freedom prevalent in our country.
Good evening and welcome to today's discussion program on GSGC TV. We'll be talking about social media's contribution to the dissemination of fake news and misinformation and the devastating consequences of this for individuals and for our democracy. We will also discuss solutions and ways to improve the situation. With us, we have on our show today Ms. Shipra Narayan, Executive Editor, Fact Check at News Mobile India. Welcome, Ms. Shipra.
Thank you.
We have Raghav Kapkar, producer for NDTV and former employee of Mojo Story, where he worked as a social media editor. Welcome, Raghav. And Dekpreet Kaur, who is a creative strategist at Atomica Singapore, who is also an active social media. Welcome, Dekpreet. Though social media has almost become an inevitable part of our lives and in our society, we can't always depend on it. The spreading of misinformation in social media is not very new. Every day we have a bunch of things that we see online, and misinformation spreads drastically. That is consisted of fabricated stories without any verifiable facts, sources, or quotes. Those stories are forged to influence readers' own opinions or deceive them. In the last few years, number of fake stories have increased tremendously via social media platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, because online they are shared faster than we can and imagine. Though there are ways to prevent fake news in social media, sometimes there are not, because there are no editors in social media to allow spread of any content without verifying it. Having said that, Parliament Standing Committee on Communications and Information Technology said that the Information and Bureau Ministry should encourage self-regulation and electronic media by broadcasting industry, because there are rampant instances of violations and code of conduct of ethics by media reflected in the form of paid news. So, what is this fake news? Is it only the media that spreads fake news on social media, or are there any individual entities too that contribute towards it? Ms. Shipra, would you please like to go first?
Thank you, Shreya. I think very pertinent topic in today's times, especially in the last 2 years, we have seen how the pandemic, how COVID-19 has taken over our lives. And one thing that, as a journalist, as somebody who has been involved with fact checking for the past more than 3 years, I think the biggest problem or the issue that happened during the pandemic, other than the health issues, was the spread of misinformation. And that happened so rampantly. It happened through so many mediums, whether it was social mediums, the social platforms that we are on, or through word of mouth. But it happened so rampantly when it came to misinformation, especially regarding vaccine hesitancy, that the results are for all of us to see. Now, the biggest question, and I think rightfully, Shreya, you asked that question. Fake news travels at a speed which is beyond comprehension. It can happen through mediums. It can also inadvertently happen through, media houses, media personalities. We've seen a lot of times that even celebrities who are on Twitter, who have blue ticks, sometimes post or retweet wrong information. So the point that happens is that there's so much happening in the world, there is so much of information that is out there, that sometimes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, people start forwarding, people start believing in things that might not be true, that might be potential fake news. And I think it's extremely important for all of us to be aware of this, to understand what are certain things that we should keep in mind. For example, you see a graphic in a newspaper, which tells you these are the number of people who've got COVID, these are the number of people in the hospital. Always look out for the credits there. Who has designed these infographics? Where is it coming from? Is WHO crediting this? Is the health ministry crediting this? So these are small things. Who's writing the article? Where is it coming from? Is there only one source that is reporting it, or there are other media houses that are also reporting it? So what I'm trying to say here is that each one of us, as citizens, as responsible citizens, have to be mindful of the things that we are seeing and viewing and internalizing. And it's always good to be mini detectives. Always look at the information that's coming to you with a third eye, and go through all these questions, look through other mediums before starting to believe that it's true. And I think the more there is education, the more people understand what misinformation or disinformation can do in our lives. It can have catastrophic outcomes, which can be at go up to a country level, go up to a democratic level. So it's very, very essential to be educated, to be aware, before just clicking on a button and sending things out. And that's extremely important in today's times. Shreya.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shipra. I mean, I would like to ask Raghav the same thing because he was a social media editor. So, what was fake news according to you at that time when you were working on news and when you had to publish them?
Thank you so much for bringing me here. I completely agree with whatever Shipra just spoke about, especially in terms of how disseminating information in the past 2, 3 years has been a really important thing to discuss with the pandemic, and how a lot of information which people consume in today's day and age is digital. And digital information without attribution can be extremely deadly and can have narratives turned around or make people believe things or do things without knowing the true causes or facts if they are not attributed properly, or making a conscious decisions themselves to actually find out what actually lies behind that piece of information. My experiences as being a social media editor for a digital media house was was very fruitful in the sense that it made me realize the importance of consciously fact checking pieces of information which you bring out, because of the huge responsibility that you have towards
I feel that he's facing a technical issue. Till the time he joins back, we can continue with our other panelist, Deeppreet, and we can ask her what fake news means to her.
Right. Thanks, Shreya. Thank you for having me on board. So basically, I would like to add to what the other panelists have said. So I personally feel like the problem is not information on social media. It is the overflow of information on social media. You know how producing content and viewing content has become so cheap and easy that every other person is either putting up a blog or putting up a meme. And the fact that, okay, so another thing that I, as somebody who's working in a digital marketing agency, has realized is that it's very easy for a person, like, let's say tomorrow I come up to you and I share a piece of content with you, and information, and I tell you, Shreya, hi, could you please repost this on your story, or share it with your friends? And the fact that we do not stop, we do not take a step back for a second, read that piece of information, fact check it, understand whether it's verified or not. We do not. I personally, I have come I have personally been in situations where I have not fact checked, where I got a piece of information and I simply shared it ahead with other people or on my stories. So I think it is, like Shipra mentioned, it is an individual's duty to check and verify the information that you receive before you share it ahead with more people and let it reach more and more people, because it's very easy, like just a click, just a reshare, and you don't even realize what damage you must have caused.
All right. I think that answers my next question that I had in front of you for you guys was that you being in your roles and positions, are you careful with fact checking, or are you careful with coming across news online that you might have to use for your own platforms? And if you are, then why do you feel there is a need? Why is it important to combat? And what can spread, or like when you spread these misinformation, how does it affect somebody personally or professionally? Like affect the organization's reputation, or affect, or if you spread a rumor, or if you spread news about a certain individual, they might even take drastic steps about their own life. So, do you agree with that? Ms. Shipra, would you like to say something?
Okay, I think a pertinent question, especially in today's times. Now, what happens? There are two, three things, and there is a lot of change that has come in the way media houses are now fact checking, because they realize that this is a very, very important issue that they're all facing. Now, there's something called an International Fact Checking Network, an IFCN, which is an international organization that certifies media houses across the world to do fact checking. Now, News Mobile, we have been an IFCN certified fact checker for the past 3 years, since 2018. Now, the point that I'm trying to make here is that when there are networks like these across the world, and when you become certified, you automatically take the accountability upon yourself to ensure that you do not publish anything or propagate anything which could be potentially fake. And that is the kind of work that I think more and more platforms need to do. Now, also, what happens is, and I'm just giving you an example of one of the interventions that we have done across the South Asia region, where we worked with a top leading partner of ours like Facebook. We've also worked with Google, where we have done training of influencers in understanding fake news, especially in the times of COVID, where there is so much of vaccine hesitancy. Now, what happens is that through these programs, you're trying to reach the maximum people, you're trying to influence them, you're trying to educate them about the different tools, about how media strategy works, how social media operates, what are the algorithms that go inside it, and what are the kind of things that each one of us as laymen have to keep in mind. Now, that becomes extremely essential. The more and more that people can do this, more media houses that can come forward and ensure that every information that goes out from their platform is checked, is rechecked, is totally verified. I think we will be able to handle it in one manner. Now, the other part that always that will remain is the ambiguous part of it, because as sorry if I got your name right, Dilpreet, as she was saying, there are lots of people there. It's very easy to make a video. My son is 13 years old, my daughter's 10, and they know how to make a YouTube video. So it's very, very easy for everybody, because of technology, to do things, and on the click of a button they can make videos, they can distribute it, they can become overnight stars because of the kind of information that they're giving out. And that is the area that is a danger spot, and that's an area that is not really under the control, in the larger picture. And I think the point remains that educating, and I would always say, as a fact checker, as a trainer who trains people across the world on fact checking, educate, educate, educate. That is the key. the more and more people that we can speak to, we can tell them the perils of misinformation, the kind of effects that it can have. We've seen humongous effects, and we do fact checking every day. Now we're doing of the latest variant of COVID. The kind of fake news that comes in is something that can leave us totally baffled. So it's very important that media houses, social news channels, even otherwise people, individuals, are accountable and responsible for the information they give out. That's one part of it. And the second is, each one of us, when we receive WhatsApp, we don't get carried away by the zing and zang of the forward that's come to us, but really stop for a second, think through it, search on it, and then forward it. Till the time we cannot exercise this give and take of information in the right way, things will be tough. Shreya, over
Thank
to
you
you.
so much. That was that was quite insightful. But and we don't have much time with us, but I would just like to give Raghav and Dekpreet an opportunity to just give one suggestion each in a few minutes, and we can wind up after that. So Raghav, would you just give a
Sure.
suggestion?
I feel like I completely agree with whatever Shipriya just spoke about, especially in terms of how educating and consciously realizing what people are doing with the information they consume is a starting point to combating fake news. I feel like what we really need to discover and realize is the fact that, especially in terms of information that floats around social media, about how social media is structured as such, and it works on algorithms which basically work on the basis of demand and supply of content or pieces of information which are floating up. The social media platforms are not the arbitrators of the information that be floating up. And hence, if you see something which is being liked by a million people, it does not mean that it is true. And that is, I think, one of the biggest fallacies in especially the younger generation where I come from, where people have this kind of a herd mentality where they start believing a lot of likes or a lot of views or groups which are coming together to believe in something which is created as a piece of a content should be true. But what lacks in that particular scenario is attribution and consciously making an effort to check what is this piece of information, because the consequences it can have are huge. They're humongous. They can almost give ill treatments in terms of COVID, or it can even break down democracies at large if you have to scale it up. So I feel it's totally a conscious decision that all of us need to make in terms of attributing pieces of information that we are consuming, and also making sure and making more people aware of the same. That's it from me. Thank you, Shah.
Thank you.
Right. So, I won't take much time. I completely agree with Shipra and Raghav. And I would just say to conclude, I think people who are in the marketplace, people like us who, like Shipra mentioned, are educated, who are in the marketplace, who have the ability to, make sure that the right content goes out, that the right content is being shared, that the content is being verified. It is our to create and share content that is verified, and we should just not jump in this cult of this competition of creating spicy content which is shareable, because shareable content is what people are running behind nowadays, but that's not what we need.
Thank you so much. This was a very fruitful discussion, and I'm sure that we gave our viewers an idea of fake news and how we can help prevent it. Have a good evening, and thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
for having us. Thank you.